In this video we will talk you through setting up an auto-enrolment pension scheme in MyPAYE. Before we start, we would like to highlight that we are not pension advisors. If you require help with what schemes are best for you, you will need to speak to an IFA or qualified accountant that can assist you with that choice. We will start the process at the front screen where you sign in. Click on Employer, Options and Pension Auto Enrolment Options. It is important to note at this point that the screen will look different depending on your chosen pension provider. This is because each provider requires customised data fields to enable a successful setup of their scheme. By clicking on the question mark, it will open up Help Topics. This one opens up a general overview of auto-enrolment pensions and provides links to the providers that we currently support. These links will give you information on what your pension provider requires. You can see from the drop-down list there are a number of providers that MyPAYE supports. These are companies we have an active relationship with. If your provider is not there, they can be added once we have a user to work with, so please raise a call through the support centre if this is the case and we can help. For the purpose of this pension, we will be using Smart Pension. You will need to add some key information to this screen. Select Smart Pension from the list. Then you will need to enter the auto-enrolment employer reference number. Please take care with this reference. A common error is for the incorrect reference number to be entered, which causes problems with the submission process. Next, enter the auto-enrolment duties start date. This used to be called the staging date, but recently the pensions regulator have renamed it. This date should represent the start date of your first employee. Update your changes. If you go back to that screen, you will see that MyPAYE will automatically populate the next re-enrolment date based on the auto-enrolment duties start date. You will also note that some red writing has appeared reminding you to enter your Smart Pension User API token on the My User Details page. We will go through this setup later on. Close your screen. If you go back to your employer and click on Pension Schemes. From here you will need to create your pension scheme. Give your scheme a name. Select the scheme type. You will see from the drop-down that you have various options, but typically an auto-enrolment scheme is a group personal pension scheme. Tick this box to tell MyPAYE that the scheme meets the auto-enrolment criteria. The system will then pull through information from the employment options screen that you've just populated. Now you need to populate details about the scheme so that MyPAYE can accurately calculate the pension. If you have multiple pension providers, we recommend getting in touch with the support centre so that you can ensure that each pension is set up correctly. Auto-enrolment pensions by law have to have contributions paid on any earnings above a minimum and up to a maximum annually. The default for MyPAYE is to base contributions on these levels. However, you can choose to pay contributions below the minimum and above the maximum by ticking on these boxes. Now you need to specify if the pension contribution should be paid gross or net. These options do cause some confusion. HMRC admit that industry terminology can be misleading, but you will need to ensure that you select the correct pension setup for your pension. The little question mark at the side will explain the difference between the two options. For an auto-enrolment compliant pension scheme, contributions are due to be paid on parental pay, so ensure that this button is ticked. Now you need to set your default contribution rates. There are minimum rates set by the pension regulator, but you can choose to set yours higher if your company offer a better policy. Click on Update. Again, this warning is telling us about our Smart API token. We will set that up next. Click OK. This pension now has to be linked to the relevant payroll. For demo purposes, I only have one payroll, but you may well have multiple payrolls and different pension providers for each payroll, so be careful to link the correct pension to the correct payroll. Again, if you do have multiple pensions and payrolls, you may want to raise a call through the support centre to ensure that each payroll is correctly linked to the right pension scheme. Click on the linked button and then close the screen. This warning here is telling us that we need to set up some details on our payroll options screen. We will get to that point later on in the demonstration. Close your screen. You may recall earlier we had a warning message about our API token on the My User Details page. Now we need to set up that API key on the users that will have access to submit your pension data. Click on Users, My User Details. Enter your API key here. Click on Update and then close your screen. There may be some additional parameters that need to be set up dependent on the pension provider. Go to Employers, Options and Payroll Options. Click on your payroll name. This display will appear. This display will vary dependent on your chosen pension provider. You will need to refer to your default policy for full details on what data your chosen scheme requires you to report. If you are unsure, remember to click on the question marks for guidance. The warning message we got earlier was about our auto-enrolment pay period start date. This is where we are going to enter this data. The next 3 sections all have the same 4 options. They are set with a default, but you can amend them if your company scheme differs. The last option is where you can stop paying contributions when an employee leaves prior to your next pay date. If your policy has this condition, you can set the marker to automatically stop deductions in the period the employee leaves if it is before your pay date. Click on Update and then close. The last part of the setup only relates to companies that have set up employer customised pay types. MyPAYE will assume by default that customised codes are not income for auto-enrolment purposes, so you will need to set the parameters on these codes. Click on Employer and Pay Types. Customised codes are distinguished with the letter E to show they are an employer setup rather than a generic code. Click on your customised pay type. The display will appear. You can see the subject to auto-enrolment pension here. This will need to be ticked if it is a code that you expect your employee to pay pension on. Click on Update and then close. That completes the setup of the pension scheme. Now if you open the month you are next due to run, you will see that you have a new pensions icon. Click on this icon and assess for auto-enrolment. Confirm your date for assessment. For the purpose of this video, it will be the last working day of the month. And click on Continue. MyPAYE will run the assessment process. You will see the results appear on the screen. If you have employees that need to be auto-enrolled, they will be highlighted. You will have the option to postpone it if that is how you have set your pension up and the employee has requested a postponement period to be triggered. This postponement can only be actioned once, and after that auto-enrolment will be compulsory. It will also highlight any employees that you have that are under 22 years of age or over 75. You can leave them unenrolled or amend their status if they have requested you to do so. If you have any employees that are below the earnings limit, they can be opted in if they have indicated they wish to join. You will need to amend their status here by clicking on these buttons. Once you are happy with this assessment process, click on Update. Some pension providers require enrolled employees and calculations to be sent in 2 different files. If this applies to your pension scheme, when you run the auto-enrolment process, there would have been a pensions icon on the summary page with the option to download an enrolment file at this stage. Click Close. This takes you back to your list of employees. Highlight one of the employees that has been auto-enrolled. You will see that just under the deductions pay items there is a new link that says click here for pensions details. Click on this link. You can see the pension scheme has been activated on the employee. The default contributions that you set up earlier appear here, but you can customise them for each employee in this screen. For instance, if this employee chose to increase their contributions, you could change their percentage to 4% and update the screen here. The screen will also show you details of the employee's auto-enrolment status and the date they have been enrolled. This section will vary dependent on your pension provider. For example, Nest schemes will require you to populate a group reference at this point. Standard Life would require you to specify a policy ID here. So you will need to check these details once you have gone through the assessment process. Close this screen once you are happy with your setup. Now you need to run your payroll. This will calculate the pension due on earnings for each employee. Along the top you can now see that we have a new pension icon. At this point you can send your data or you can check your results and come back to this later. Click on Finish. To check the pension deductions taken, click in Reports, Pension Deductions and select the month you've just run. Once you're happy with this data, you can go back to the pay summaries for the month. Click on Display and click on the pension icon to finalise your pension obligations. Depending on the pension you have chosen, you will either have the option to export the pension file or post pension data. An export file produces a CSV file that you can upload into your pension provider's portal. Post pension data will send the pension data directly to your provider. For the purpose of this demo, we will be clicking on Post Pension Data. This page details the headers that will be used to build your submission file. Check the pay period start date, the pay period pay date, and the pay period end dates are correct, and click on the Continue if you are happy with the information on this page. MyPAYE will build the pension file for you and send it to your pension provider using the API functionality. The system will provide you with a message on whether the transfer was successful or if there are any errors or warnings you will need to look at. Close this down. You will now see that we have a new functionality that says Get API Response. Each pension provider has a different response time. Smart Pension generally respond in under a minute. However, others such as Nest can take longer due to their internal processes. Nest will provide you with an estimated response time and a countdown clock will start on the screen. If the response is not immediate, you have the option to leave the screen and come back to view it later. Close your screen down and close. You should run your assessment every month as good practice, even if you know there are no changes. If you have any questions about your personal circumstance, please raise a question through the support centre and we will answer it for you. Lastly, we would like to remind you that we are not pension advisors. If you require help with what schemes are best for you, you will need to speak to an IFA or qualified accountant that can assist you with that choice.